Hello children, good morning. And today I am going to start the first lesson in the biology, that is life processes. So first thing, let us start with the fundamentals. Let us start with fundamentals. That is, what is biology? What is biology? So biology is a Greek word which means, bio means living or life, and logos means study of. So biological science means systematic study of living organisms. So what are living organisms? So the living organisms are those which have life, and they do various activities from the birth till the death. So they are living organisms. So the living organisms include different kinds of things, living things. So what are the different living things? Let us see. That is plants, animals, and you can say microorganisms. Plants, animals, and microorganisms. So these plants, animals, microorganisms, whatever they are, from the birth, that means the time they take birth till the death, they perform various activities without which they cannot survive. That means these are all very, very important for the survival of the organism. So these are basic processes which are required for the growth, development, survival of the organisms. So what are these basic processes and what are they called? So the basic processes which are required, the basic processes which are required for the survival, growth and development of the organism are called basic processes, basic life processes. So these basic life processes include so many activities, all the living organisms perform so many activities, like plants perform photosynthesis, and all the living organisms perform respiration, and transport system, that means the circulatory system, excretory system, nervous system, endocrine system, and finally reproductive system. So various life processes, all these are necessary for the survival, growth, development of the organism. The plants exhibit movement, so movement is also a kind of activity. So the organisms move from one place to another place in search of food, water, and running away from the enemies, in case of in search of shelter. So for all these things, the organisms exhibit movement. So all these processes put together known as life processes. So these life processes, so these are all very much important: photosynthesis, respiration, transport system, excretory system, nervous system, endocrine system, reproductive system, all these are very, very important. And so finally, I want to say this reproductive system. So we are going to study later about this chapter. Anyway, reproductive system is another important life process which helps in continuation of the species. So these are all very important for survival, growth, development. But reproductive system is very much important for the continuation of the species. You know, all the living organisms have certain period of life, certain lifespan. So after that certain period of life, the organisms have to die. But the species continues, the race continues. So the system which helps in the perpetuation, that is continuation of the species, is called a reproductive system. Okay, so all these systems are called, put together, known as life processes. And so we are going to study all these life processes one by one. So photosynthesis is a food productive system by the green plants. Respiratory system is an oxidation process which generates energy. Transport system which transports various substances to all the cells in the body and eliminates unimportant substances from the body. And also nervous system is which coordinates, nervous system and endocrine system, they will coordinate. Coordinate means they make all the organisms work together. That is called nervous system and endocrine system. And reproductive system helps in the continuation of the species. Movement will help the organisms move from one place to another, run, move, walk, whatever. They move from one place to another place in search of food, to escape from the enemies, and to go to a safer place, to take shelter. So the organisms exhibit movement. So we are going to study all these life processes one after another. So first thing, let us first know these are called life processes. Now let us start with the photosynthesis. Okay. So photosynthesis is considered as a basic life process. Photosynthesis is considered as a basic life process. Why it is considered as a basic life process? What is the importance of photosynthesis? So why do only green plants perform photosynthesis? That is the question. Okay. So photosynthesis is, so actually we can say photo means light. Synthesis means preparation. So the organisms prepare food in the presence of light. So what is food? What is it necessary? Why it is necessary? What is the food that the plants are producing? Why we are going to give so much of importance? Photosynthesis is considered as a basic life process, very important life process. Okay, it is considered as a basic life process. So all the living organisms, whether animal or microorganisms, are directly or indirectly depend on the plants which produce food. So food is, why food is very important? Food is very important because food contains the food will get converted into energy. So that energy is very important for building up of the body, for the formation of new cells, new organs, and also it is very important to generate energy. So we perform so many activities from the morning till we go to bed. So for all these things, photosynthesis provides food for all the living organisms. So all the living organisms, without any exception, are directly or indirectly are dependent on the plants. So first thing, So, and one more thing, photosynthesis. So, what is we are going to discuss the importance of photosynthesis. So, photosynthesis, in addition to supply food to all the living organisms, it also releases oxygen. It also releases oxygen into the atmosphere, which is very important. Without oxygen, no organism can survive, and so it helps. It is the only process which releases oxygen into the atmosphere, and it helps to maintain the ratio between oxygen and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So almost 20% of oxygen is present in the atmosphere, 0.03% of carbon dioxide is present in the atmosphere, and the remaining part is almost 70% of nitrogen is present in the atmosphere, and so many miscellaneous gases are present in the atmosphere. So photosynthesis helps in maintaining the ratio between oxygen and carbon dioxide. So it is the only process. Photosynthesis is the only process which releases oxygen into the atmosphere. You may observe when you go into a place where is thick vegetation, so many plants are there, you can feel the air is very fresh. Why the air is very fresh? Because lot of oxygen is released by the plants, and also they release water in the form of vapor by means of a process which is called as transpiration. So where the vegetation is more and more, you can see the air is very fresh, and also you can see the humid, that means the air is contains, that means we feel so cool, the atmosphere is so cool because lot of water vapor is present in the atmosphere. So that is the importance of photosynthesis. And the next thing, so first thing, it produces food for all the living organisms, and also it is the only process which releases oxygen into the atmosphere. And next thing, it also provides, in addition to food, also it also provides so many economically, medicinally important products. So that is why photosynthesis is considered as the basic, that is important life process. If there is no photosynthesis, animals including human beings do not get food, so they die. That means without photosynthesis, no life exists. So that is the importance of photosynthesis. Okay, next thing. So if you see, I'm going to give certain basic things before proceeding into the process of photosynthesis. So in the living organisms, chemical reactions are taking place. So many chemical reactions are taking place, and these various chemical reactions that are taking place in the living organisms are called metabolic reactions. Metabolic reactions. These metabolic reactions are of two types: anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism and catabolism. What is anabolism? Anabolism is a constructive reaction. Anabolism is a constructive reaction, whereas catabolism is a destructive reaction. Destructive reaction. So what is constructive reaction? What is constructive reaction? Anabolism, constructive reaction. We are saying anabolism is constructive reaction, catabolism is a destructive reaction. So what is anabolism? In anabolism, what happens? Small molecules join together to form large molecule. Whereas in the case of catabolism, large molecules are broken down into smaller ones. Large molecules are broken down into smaller ones. That is, so small molecules are joining together to form larger molecule. And here large molecule, that is in catabolism, Large molecules are broken down into smaller molecules. So here smaller molecules are going to combine. So for this combination, energy is required. So chemical bond is going to be formed here. Chemical bond is going to be formed here. So for the formation of chemical bonds, energy is required. Energy is very important. So that is why, so that means for the formation of larger molecules, smaller molecules unite together. So how they unite, how they join? With the help of chemical bonds. So all the chemical bonds, for the formation of chemical bonds, energy is required. So reverse, you can say. Here, in the catabolic reactions or catabolism, large molecules are broken down into smaller molecules. That means here the chemical bonds are breaking down. The chemical bonds are breaking down. So when the chemical bonds break down, energy is released. Energy is released. Here energy is stored. Energy is stored in anabolic reactions. Energy is released in catabolic reactions. So do you follow? So best example for anabolism, you can say that is photosynthesis. And best example for respiration, you can see that best example for catabolism is respiration. So in photosynthesis, what's happening? Smaller molecules are joining together and forming a larger molecule. Here in catabolism, larger molecules are broken down into smaller molecules. So that is the basic thing. And before we going to proceed further, so do you follow? I think you are able to follow this. Anabolic reactions and metabolism. Metabolism means the chemical reactions which are taking place in the living organisms. And this metabolism is of two types, anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is a constructive reaction where smaller molecules are joining together to form larger molecule, and catabolism is said to be destructive reaction where larger molecules are broken down into smaller molecules. So before going to proceed further in the photosynthesis, you can see there are two types of chemical reactions which you might have come across in chemistry, that is oxidation and reduction. Oxidation and reduction. So these are the basic things which you have to know. So oxidation and reduction. Oxidation reactions and reduction reactions. So oxidation is one, so in which oxygen atom is added. Oxygen atom is added, or hydrogen atom is removed, or electron is removed. That is called oxidative reactions. If oxygen atom is added, or hydrogen atom is removed, or electron is removed, that reaction is called oxidation reactions. Reduction, just reverse. So here oxygen atom is removed, hydrogen atom is added, and electron is added. That is called reduction reactions. So we are coming across this oxidation and reduction reactions. Okay. So this is the things which you have to know before going further to study the process of photosynthesis. Okay. So I think you have understood, and let me proceed further. Okay. Next thing. So photosynthesis, I told you, photosynthesis, we are all telling photosynthesis and photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? I told you photosynthesis is like, synthesis means preparation. So preparation of food in the presence of light. So where actually in the plant the food is prepared, and what are they called? So depending upon the type of food they produce, and how the food is transferred from one organism to another organism, how it transfers. So in the form of a chain, which we are going to study in later chapters. And so they say that is the food which is prepared by organisms themselves. Yeah, they are called as autotrophs. They are called autotrophs. And the organisms which cannot synthesize their own food, which depend on plants directly or indirectly, they are called as heterotrophs. Autotrophs, heterotrophs, and there are certain other things which are called as saprophytes. Saprophytes. So autotrophs are the organisms which can synthesize. They do not depend on any other living organism for their food. They synthesize their own food. They are called as autotrophs, like green plants and certain photosynthetic bacteria. They are called as green plants and certain photosynthetic bacteria. They are called autotrophs. So they synthesize. They do not depend on other organisms for their food. And next thing, heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are the organisms which cannot synthesize their own food. They depend on the plants. They depend on the plants directly or indirectly. So they are called as heterotrophs. There are two types of heterotrophs. What are they? So first one are herbivores. And another one is carnivores. Herbivores and carnivores. What are herbivores? Herbivores are the organisms which depend on plants for their food. So they eat green plants and they digest the green plants. They are called herbivores, like cow, goat, sheep. So these are all herbivores. They depend, rabbit. So you can take any examples which depend on the plants for their food. So herbivores are the organisms which depend on the plants and take the food material. And carnivores are the organisms which eat other organisms for their food. That means they do not eat plants. So they eat the animals which eat plants. That means they are indirectly depending on the plants. So like lion, wolf, cheetah. So you can take any wild animals. So these are called carnivores. Okay. So put together herbivores and carnivores put together, they are known as heterotrophs. Okay. And next one, another category is saprophytes. So saprophytes are the organisms, they get their food by decomposing the dead parts of plants and animals. So when the plants and animals die, they act on dead parts of plants and animals and they get their food. They are called as saprophytes, like bacteria, fungi. So you can take example for herbivores, cow, goat, sheep, rabbit, whatever. For carnivores, you can take the examples of lion, wolf, cheetah, tiger, any example. And saprophytes are the organisms which get their food by acting on the dead parts of plants and animals. So they decompose the dead parts of plants and animals and they get their food. So that is why they are also called as decomposers. They are also called as decomposers. So example for decomposers, fungi, bacteria. So these are the examples for saprophytes. So saprophytes are otherwise called as, you can say, autotrophs are producers, heterotrophs are consumers, and saprophytes are decomposers. So anyway, you are going to study in the further chapters about in detail. So, but just I am giving you the names. Okay, saprophytes are the organisms which feed on dead parts of plants and animals and get their food. So example is fungi, bacteria, etc. Okay, so and there is another type of nutrition, that is getting the food. So nutrition means taking enough food. Okay, so the animals take food. So there are parasitic type of nutrition. Parasitic type of nutrition. So parasites are the organisms which live on the bodies of plants and animals and they get their food. They take shelter, they take food, and they get their food. So, like this, the parasitic organisms are external parasites and also internal parasites. So, external parasites you can say leech, which sucks blood from the animals, lice, ticks. So, these are all external parasites. So, they live on the body of the organism and get their food. They are called external parasites. And there are certain parasites, that means parasites take food and shelter in the host. That means an organism. They select an organism which is called as host and they take their food. And in plants also there are certain parasitic plants. So Cuscuta is a plant which belongs to the family Convolvulaceae. So it takes food and shelter on the host plant, and so it sucks the food from the host plant by means of finger-like structures which are called as hastoria. So hastoria are the finger-like structures through which it penetrates into the body of the host plant and it sucks the nutrients, food materials from the host plant. So these are all external parasites. And internal parasites are those which enter into the body of the host organism. They take shelter, they select a particular organ in the body of the host and then they take food material from the organism. They take shelter in the host organism. So that means that they are called as parasitic type of nutrition. So autotrophs, heterotrophs, this is autotrophic type of nutrition, heterotrophic type of nutrition, saprophytic type of nutrition, and parasitic type of nutrition. So these are all very important. It means nutrition, that means getting the food, taking the food, collecting the food, and so the food will enter into the body, and the food provides energy for the organism to perform various activities. So that is the introduction to photosynthesis and the basic things which you need to know. Okay, so I think you are able to follow me. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know so that I can make you understand in a better way. Okay. So these are the things. And next we'll get back to the chapter that is photosynthesis. So I have already told you that photosynthesis is an important basic life process which takes place in the presence of light. So the equation for photosynthesis can be given in such a way, that is what are the basic things that are required for photosynthesis. That means carbon dioxide, 6CO2 plus 12H2O in the presence of sunlight, chloroplast. It produces glucose C6H12O6 plus 6H2O and oxygen, which is released into the atmosphere. So in the beginning I told you photosynthesis is the only process which releases oxygen into the atmosphere. So for a chemical reaction you have to understand the left side they are called requirements. They are otherwise reactants, and these are called products. These are called products, and these are requirements. So for any chemical reaction, so left side of the equation they are reactants, right side of the equation they are products, and the arrow which I have given, so they are the requirements. That means for photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water are required. They react together in the presence of sunlight and chloroplast. They give glucose, water, and also release oxygen. So these are the products. But the process of photosynthesis is not as simple as the equation has shown here. So it is very complicated, complex reaction. That is why how can we define photosynthesis? That is very important. How can we define photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is said to be a complex photochemical reaction. Complex photochemical reaction. Complex photochemical reaction where the carbohydrates are produced. What is this carbohydrate? C6H12O6 is glucose. So carbohydrates, again I want to say, I'll tell you afterwards, glucose is a simple carbohydrate. So glucose, that is carbohydrates, are produced in the presence of sunlight in the chloroplasts of green plants, releasing water and also oxygen. So for the process of photosynthesis, what are the things that are required? Carbon dioxide and water are required. And what is another thing? Sunlight and chloroplast. And what are the products? Glucose is formed, water is released, and oxygen is released. So that is the equation, balanced equation for photosynthesis. But I told you already, it is not a simple process. It is very complex, very complicated photochemical. That means chemical reactions are taking place in the presence of light. Complex photochemical reaction where carbohydrates are formed from carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight and chloroplast, releasing oxygen and also water. So by looking at the equation, we can easily define photosynthesis. Again, I am repeating, photosynthesis is a complex photochemical reaction which produces carbohydrates with carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight and chloroplast, releasing water and oxygen. So that is the definition for photosynthesis. So for photosynthesis, what are the requirements? I told you carbon dioxide is required, water is required, sunlight is required, and chloroplast is required. So the requirements which are coming from outside, they are external factors. External factors. And which are inside, they are called internal factors. So what are external factors? So the plant is getting carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, sunlight from outside, and water from the soil. And internal factors are chloroplast. In the plant, they are present. Where they are present and what is their function, what is the structure of chloroplast, that we shall see in later classes. Okay, so external factors and internal factors. External factors and internal factors. So in addition to this, for the completion of photosynthesis, another important things which are required are called enzymes. So enzymes are very important. Enzymes are very important for the chemical reactions to take place properly. So you might have studied about the substances which speed up the chemical reaction. They are called catalysts. Catalysts, what do? They speed up the chemical reactions that are taking place but they do not take part in the chemical reaction. They are called as enzymes. So they are called catalysts, and here enzymes are called biological catalysts. So enzymes are very important for the process of photosynthesis. And so carbon dioxide, water, in the presence of sunlight and chloroplast, it will produce glucose, releases water and carbon dioxide. So that is about the definition and equation, balanced equation for photosynthesis. What are the factors, external factors and internal factors? And now the question arises, where actually the process of photosynthesis takes place? That is the question. Okay, so are you able to follow now? So hopefully you understand the subject. If you have any doubt, please let me know so that I can clarify. I'll try to clarify your doubt. Please let me know. Okay, so now if you see the factors, external factors and internal factors. So photosynthesis is a type of photochemical reaction. So first it has to get sunlight. So the plants has to get sunlight. That means I told you photosynthesis is an anabolic process, constructive reaction where small molecules like carbon dioxide and water. So they are joining together to form a larger molecule like glucose. So that means it is a constructive reaction. So for this energy is required because there is a chemical bond is going to be formed for which energy is required. Okay, so where this energy is available to the plant? So you know, from the sunlight. So sunlight is the source of energy. So let us know few things about it. They may not be in your syllabus, but it is necessary for you to know certain basic things about light. So light is a part of electromagnetic radiation. So in the light, small particles are present which are called photons. They are called photons. Each photon carries some amount of energy which is called as quantum. So you might have studied in physics quantum energy. So the photons contain some amount of energy which is called as quantum. So these photons, so that means light, the energy that is present in the light is measured in the form of wavelength. So the wavelength is measured in nanometers. So that is the wavelength between 400 to 700 nanometers. Nanometers is visible light. So below 400 and above 700 we cannot see the light. Whatever the light we see is between this range, 400 to 700 nanometers. So if the wavelength is shorter, it carries more amount of energy. If the wavelength is shorter, the light carries more amount of energy. If the wavelength is longer, it carries less amount of energy. That is ultraviolet rays, gamma rays, X-rays. So they have shorter wavelength, but they carry lot of energy. But this light is not visible. That means we cannot see ultraviolet rays, gamma rays or X-rays. They have shorter wavelength and they carry more amount of energy. And the light rays which are longer, that means with longer wavelength, they carry less amount of energy, like infrared rays and radio waves. They carry less amount of energy. But whatever the light which we see is between 400 nanometers to 700 nanometers. And you might have seen in your lower classes when the light ray passes through a prism. So shall I repeat off? So is there any necessity to repeat anything? So we are going to study about different factors. Okay. So that is the light energy. Light energy is a part of electromagnetic radiation, and light energy carries small particles which are called photons. Each photon carries a certain amount of energy which is called as quantum. And the light, the energy that is present in the light depends upon its wavelength. So the light rays which we see, they are visible light rays. They have the wavelength between 400 to 700 nanometers. Below 400 and above 700 nanometers, we cannot see the light. But below 400 nanometers, the rays carry a lot of energy, like ultraviolet rays, gamma rays, and X-rays. And the light rays above 700, they have longer wavelength but less energy. They are infrared rays, radio waves, etc. Okay, next. So, if a white light, that means the light ray between wavelength of 400 to 700 nanometers, if it is allowed to pass through a prism, you might have studied or you might have seen, if the light ray is allowed to pass through a prism, it will divide, you can see 7 colors in the light. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and also you can say 7 colors. 7 colors. What are they? You know, V, I, B, G, Y, O, R, VGR. So when a light ray is allowed to pass through a prism, it will divide. That means in the same way when rain occurs, you can see rainbow. And in the rainbow, you can observe 7 colors. V, I, B, G, Y, O, R, VGR. So 7 colors are there. And what is the important color for photosynthesis? You know, green light is not at all important for photosynthesis. Green light is because when the process will take place, if in the plant chlorophyll pigment is present which is green in color and it absorbs light, so then the process will continue. So green light is not important because green light is reflected back by the chlorophyll molecule, and so rest of the colors will be absorbed. But the light rays between blue, near the light rays at blue and red, they are very important because maximum amount of photosynthesis will take place at this wavelength, blue color light and red color light. Okay, so blue and red colors are very important. Among these VGR, V, I, B, G, Y, O, R, green is not useful for photosynthesis because it is not absorbed by the chlorophyll molecule. It is reflected back by the chlorophyll molecule, and rest of the colors will be absorbed, but maximum colors that are absorbed to produce food, energy in the form of food, are blue and red rays. Okay, so that is the importance of light. Okay, so we have studied about one factor which influences photosynthesis. And next one, water. So water is another important factor. So where do the plants get water from? The plants get water from the soil. So the roots of the plants are in the soil. So the roots will absorb the water and minerals that are present in the water. So in addition to water, minerals are also various minerals, magnesium, magnesium, zinc, copper, various minerals, nitrates. So these are all very important for the plant to grow and develop and synthesize food materials. Okay, so that is why the roots of the plant will absorb the water. But from the roots, how it will reach the leaves? So that is the question. So there is a transport system, xylem. Xylem is a tissue, complex tissue you might have studied in the lower classes. It contains vessels, trachea, various things. And so this xylem will conduct the water and minerals from the soil to the leaves. So xylem is the part of a transport system which transports water and minerals from the soil to the leaves. And there is another complex tissue which is called as phloem. Phloem is another complex tissue which transports synthesized food material from the leaves to various parts of the plant. Okay, so that is xylem and phloem are the conductive tissues which play important role in the process of transportation. Okay, and so through xylem the water along with the minerals will enter into the plants. It is transported to the upper part of the plant, that is leaves. And about carbon dioxide, so where is carbon dioxide present? Carbon dioxide is present in the atmosphere. So how much of carbon dioxide is present? 0.03% of carbon dioxide is present in the atmosphere. And this carbon dioxide is transported from the atmosphere and they enter into the leaves directly. So they are going to enter into the leaves through openings which are called as stomata, that you will understand when we study the structure of leaf. Okay, so carbon dioxide and sunlight. We have studied sunlight, carbon dioxide, water. So these are all the requirements. And glucose. Glucose is the simplest form of carbohydrates. Glucose is the simplest form of carbohydrate. And this glucose, which is soluble in water, is transported to various parts of the plants, and then it finally will get converted into starch, which is insoluble in water. Okay, so that is how the requirements of the photosynthesis, how do the plants get different food materials. So that's all for today, and we'll continue tomorrow. So if you have any doubts, any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much.